afternoon, everyone. Thank you. My name is Charlotte Mouyal, and I am a teen and family coach. I'm also an international speaker, and for the last 3 years, I've helped teens and families improving their lives through communication and through coaching. Do you know how you can be more productive and confident in the scope of just one day? What if I told you that that was possible? Through just one key note or key thought. The answer to that is self-awareness. And today I'll be telling you how self-awareness changed my life and how it can change your lives too. So if you start off with the definition of self-awareness, so self-awareness per definition is the conscious knowledge of one's own character, feelings, motives, and desires. And it also states that the process can be painful, but that it leads to greater self-awareness. And I can tell you, for me, the process was very painful, and the process for you guys is most probably also painful, but that it leads to greater self-awareness. So let me tell you a bit about myself and my story. I was born in Spain, and I grew up in France and the United States. By the age of 12, we moved back to Denmark. I had a French father and a Danish mother. I had a good home, so I was raised in a good place. And by the age of 16, my father passed away, which was a very difficult time. As a teen, when a parent passes away, like at that age, you don't know yourself, you don't know your own identity. So I actually went through a very tough time, a very difficult time. And I ended up dropping out of 2 schools between the ages of 16 and 21. So when I was 21, I was still very young, as some of you might be as well here. I decided to move to Spain. I literally just took my 2 suitcases and said to my mom, I'm out of here. And she didn't believe me. So my whole family was like, nah, you're not going anywhere. I said, well, I sure am. So I took my 2 suitcases and just left. Because I thought in my mind that my life was gonna improve dramatically when I moved away. So actually running away from my problems, which I found out at a later age that was the case. I was in Spain. I lived there for 4 years, and that was I was at a time in my life where I started reflecting on life. I started reflecting on the different situations that I came into. And I knew that I had a unique ability to actually solve my own problems or the issues that I had, but I didn't know how to take action upon it. Maybe some of you may know this, or may have been in the same situation where you know you have an issue, you know you have a challenge, you have the solution in your head, but you just don't know how to get above that or how to take action upon it. At least that was the case for me a lot of times. So again, I went on for 4 years. I lived there, and the solutions and the challenges just kept arising, but I didn't know how to do anything about it. So when I was 25, I moved to London for 2 years, and by the age of 27, I moved back to Denmark. I didn't have an education at the age of 27, so I thought that was about time. And I studied for 5.5 years, so I was finished when I was 33. And at the age of 33, I got a job, and I just need to say that I've been in the hotel and restaurant industry for 20 years. So that was actually the industry that I thought that I was going to continue in. So I got a job in a conference place. And I was there for, I don't know, a month and a half, 2 months. And I have to admit, during the day, I was on Facebook. You're not supposed to be on Facebook at work, right? Nor at school, are you? Right? But I was. And I looked, because I got this bling, you know, when you get a message. So I got a message, I read the message, and it says, "Good morning, Charlotte. I hope that this is going to be the first day of the rest of your life. Congratulations, you just won a coach education." That was my turning point. And that is what has changed my life completely. I have, for years, wanted to work within coaching. I have loved children and teens since I can remember. So for me, that message was like, wow. Up until that time, I was full. I was full of life. You know, when you've eaten so much, you can't even walk. So that's how I felt, both mentally, physically, in every single way. So that was the starting point of the turnaround in my life. I got the coach education, and it took 6 months. And I went through pain, I went through sorrow, I went through grief, and I went through everything, every single process or every single emotion that you have in your body. Good and bad. I also laughed, but I mostly cried for the 6 months. And that was what happened to me. You don't necessarily have to feel the same way when you go through this process of self-awareness. But I can tell you that self-awareness is an essential part of us as human beings. Because it creates an awareness inside of us that has consequences for the outer world. And it has consequences for you and for the people that you are around, whether you like it or not. So self-awareness is taking responsibility for yourself, your actions, what you do, and how you do it. So I'd like to tell you a little story about a teen that I met a couple months ago. He's 12 years old, and I was a teacher at this place. I was there for 3 weeks. And he actually stole my heart. He was a cute young teen, and we just clicked from the beginning. We had a lot of fun, but I was also very attentive on him because he was a kid that very easily got distracted, but he could also focus if you just, tapped him on the back and said, "Psst, maybe you should just be a little more attentive or just listen to the teacher." He was like, yeah, that's true. Okay, I'll focus. But if you didn't say anything, he wouldn't do it because he was just demotivated. And I kind of recognized myself in him in some ways, although he was very wilder than I was. So one day I came and his head was down, his body language. It's very important with the body language. Any of you know anything about body language? No? Yes? So it's very important to have a straight back, to look people in the eyes, and he was doing the total opposite of that. So I grabbed him and I said, "Come on, let's go. Let's go somewhere and talk." So we went into the kitchen, and this place was like very small. Like we barely had space for anything. And I sat down to him and I said, "What's going on?" He said, "I don't know. This is very overwhelming." Because this was at a place with about 20 other 12-year-olds. I mean, imagine 20 students of 12-year-olds, girls and boys, being wild and laughing and screaming and doing everything. And for him, this was a couple of days after, and he was very overwhelmed. And I said to him, "Okay." And he said, "I just don't have any energy. I have a headache. I have a stomach ache." And as a coach, as a teen coach, working with teens for the past 3 years, I know that having a headache means something else. I mean, we all know that means something else, but it's not always that we deal with it. then we might take a pill, or we might go out to eat, or we might drink, or we might do something else that actually distracts us from the main issue. So I said, okay, what's going on? I don't know. And it's, I mean, bear in mind, this is a 12-year-old boy. He doesn't always know the issue or what it is. I looked him in the eye and I said, you know what? The role that you're playing amongst the other guys here is actually draining you. And he looked at me, he was like, I don't understand. And I said, the role that you're taking on, the way that you are with all these other young people is not good. It's draining you. And he looks at me, he's like, you know what? Now that you say it, I see what you mean. And that was the most powerful moment for me as a coach, as a human being, that a 12-year-old recognizes and admits, and he finally can put into words, or I did it for him, but he actually can see that that was the issue. So that was, and that's like for me, it's a great shout out to parents that we are role models for our children. We are role models for our teens. We need to help them create self-awareness. And for us to be able to create self-awareness in our children and in our teens, guess what? We have to create it in ourselves first. And it's so important because it has consequences if we don't create that self-awareness in ourselves. That means creating better communication with your child, with your teen. Well, that also means that you have to communicate with yourself better. So everything we do affects our children and teens, and whether you're a parent or not here, the same goes for you as well. It's the same thing. You don't have to have children to create self-awareness. The only reason why I'm saying it is because I work with teens and families. So I know the consequences, and I know what effect it has, and what a big impact it has on families. How many of you know, or how many of you knew the word self-awareness before you came in here today? Okay. So how many of you have worked with self-awareness? Exactly my point. And it's not a bad thing that not a lot of you have worked with self-awareness. I'm just encouraging you that when you leave here today, do yourself a favor and start looking into this. It doesn't mean that you have to take the same coach education as I did. It doesn't mean that you have to sit and meditate every day. It doesn't mean, there's no right or wrong with any of this. And there's no correct way of doing it because we're all individuals and we all do it differently. But by looking into self-awareness, you can change your own life. So ask yourself this question, so I'm gonna end this on a question. What step can you do already today? Just a small step that can help you change you and your life to create a better life. Thank you.